So Konami posted the actual reasoning behind the latest ban list. Let's get into it. If you want 5% off any single or sealed product and want to support me and the channel, head over to tierzerogames.com and use code GALZO5 at checkout. So Konami's blog has a lot of interesting information. It mostly has event coverage and, blog posts and stuff like that. But yesterday, it was 2 days ago, I think. I don't know by the time you're seeing this, but it was, I think, 1 day before the remote YCS or on the day of the remote YCS, December 10th. They posted a new update, the new Forbidden Limited list, in effect for YCS Remote Duel. So just as a reminder, the new Forbidden Limited list was actually put into effect on December 1st, so 10 days prior to that. And from what I'm seeing from the blog posts on the Konami blog, there's only been 2 of those Forbidden and Limited list updates ever. I'm pretty sure that's not true, but maybe it's something with the tagging system that they use. The previous one, anyway, was on May 28th after the Forbidden and Limited list that sort of like shook up Hartford with the banning of Verte and Meow Mew, and there was a third card there that I can't remember. Leave it down in the comments below. So that's the last time when we had that sort of communication from Konami, and on December 10th, which was 2 days ago as I'm recording it, it came again, and we have another update. So these are pretty rare, I would say. Konami's communication hasn't been like extremely good in the last few years in terms of like transparency, not even communication, just like transparency on what's happening. Is something happening, in terms of ban list? People were clamoring for this ban list for a long time, and it suddenly just dropped, and Mystic Mine was actually on that list. So I wanted to go over their blog post and look at the actual reasoning that they give for banning, limiting, semi-limiting, and unlimiting each card. It's really interesting to read, so stick around if you're interested in that. So, first of all, newly forbidden Mystic Mine and Curious the Lightsworn Dominion have joined the Forbidden list. Mystic Mine had recently become a key card in competitive dueling, forcing many duelists to include cards in their deck that can get it off the field or risk losing once Mystic Mine is played. With Mystic Mine now forbidden, duelists no longer have to consider the possibilities of this controversial field spell card stalling a duel for several consecutive turns. So the gist of what they're saying is, and I've said it in these videos previously about Mystic Mine, the problem, Konami wouldn't say that having this card repeatedly come up in feature matches is the problem, but like in a gameplay sense, people have to main deck outs creatively for Mystic Mine. So we've seen that with cards like Galaxy Cyclone back when Tier Limit Danger was a thing. We've seen it even protected with things like Beat Cop from the Underworld. But people have been altering their main deck to play against Mystic Mine or, deal with Mystic Mine. And that was a big problem because you would have to dedicate some sort of main deck space to get rid of one card that is just like unhealthy and idiotic to have in the game in the first place. So I suppose that definitely makes sense. Curious the Lightsworn Dominion. This was too little too late, but let's see the reasoning. Curious was a popular card, especially among Tier Limits duelists, because it was adept at sending cards from the deck to the graveyard, which Tier Limits obviously like. Perhaps most importantly, it is able to send a card of your choosing to the graveyard if it's link summoned. By sending highly impactful cards like Eradicator Epidemic Virus or Deck Devastation Virus to the graveyard, duelists were able to return those cards to the field with Nightmare Griffin and use them to annihilate your opponent's chances of winning. So the last time we've seen that was in the previous format, not this format. The addition of Curious the Lightsworn Dominion to the Forbidden Limited list prevents that from happening and deals a blow to decks like Tier Limits that makes the most effective use of Curious. So I think this is a very fair point. People were kind of wondering if like Curious was the problem or Griffin was the problem. I always thought that Curious was just like too powerful and too generic to bring out. Tier Limits can spam out the monsters that are needed, and I think this was not only a Tier Limits hit, it was actually a preemptive Dark World hit, because that deck can also spam out a lot of dark monsters with different types using the Dangers and the Fiends, and this card can come up again, and because they spam so many monsters, You could do the Curious Nightmare Griffin lock in Dark World as well, as it is after the structure deck. So I think too late for Tailorments, but very good because that card is powerful, just like powerful, and you don't want to abuse it further. Let's look at the newly limited. I think those explanations were fairly okay. I think the Mystic Mine was Mystic Mine explanation was like pretty tame. You know, probably the most hated card in the history of Yu-Gi-Oh, but yeah. Newly limited. Tearlaments have been dominating the advanced format of Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game ever since the release of Magnificent Mavens and the Fairy-type Ishizu cards. Those decks typically use 3 copies of Herald of the Orange Light, which is not entirely true. A lot of people were citing it, but yeah, if you were maining it, there's no reason not to main 3, because it could stop an opponent's monster effect while sending one of those Ishizu cards to the graveyard, allowing the effect of that send monster to be used. The new limitation of Herald weakens Tearlaments decks that incorporate Fairy-type Ishizu monsters from Magnificent Mavens into them. I think this makes perfect sense. You want to reduce the variance and make it less consistent to draw the Herald. That's basically it. Herald is amazing. Combined with the Ishizu, it's more amazing. I think limiting it is just like, I think it was a very good call because this list was meant to weaken Tearlaments. That's all this list was supposed to do. I don't think it did really well, realistically, but you could have released other cards from the ban list that could weaken it a bit further, but Herald makes sense. Newly semi-limited Recital Starling. The Lyridas strategy hasn't been recently popular, so this change must give them might give them a much needed boost. Yeah, makes sense. It's very stronger too. It's a very good card. Removed from the Forbidden Unlimited list. So we have a whopping 5 cards, the first of which are Dimension Fissure and Macrocosmos. These were previously both limited. One, because these cards remain on the field when they're activated and will banish any key card sent to the Tearlaments Duelist graveyard. Oh, sorry, this was not a 1. Okay, we're previously both limited to 1. Both these cards send all the, yeah, obviously they banish all the cards that go to the graveyard. Generally, this will completely shut down the Tearlaments Duelist play. Since virtually all monsters in the Tearlaments deck need to be sent to the graveyard, use their most powerful effects. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. It was clear that they were trying to weaken Tearlament. I don't think introducing specific floodgates that deal directly with the mechanic that the deck is good at, that's not the way to do it. You should release other strategies from the ban list, like Orcust, for example, or more powerful Pendulum cards or stuff like that, to strengthen the other strategies directly, instead of giving every deck a floodgate that they can use against a specific strategy. I think this was just a poor design choice. I said in my previous video, but now we can like read it, see that this is what they tried to do, and say, this is bullcrap. To be honest, this is not the way you handle those kind of things, I think. We've seen the word or the sentence weaken Tearlaments, or like hinder, shut down Tearlaments Duelist plays. There are other more effective ways of doing that without creating more floodgates reliance in the metagame. So the next one is Ptolemaeus, and they say here it serves a similar function to Fissure and Cosmos. Since you can summon it, then go directly into Satellar Knight Constellar Diamond, which prevents cards from being sent from the deck to the graveyard. So Constellar Diamond can be used in May phase, can be summoned in May phase 2. You can tell a monster that you control, yada yada. While it's on the field, neither player can send cards from the deck to the graveyard, and any cards that returns from the graveyard to the hand is banished instead. Yeah, again, directly hinder Tearlaments. I suppose that card is fine anyway, not just in the context of so what happens when Tearlaments get banned, this card gets banned again? This card is fine, right? Don't like make excuses for why this card should be unbanned. Half of the list can be unbanned, and the game will still be balanced. Finally, we have Metaverse and Fire Formation Tanky removed from the list altogether. Metaverse, which was previously limited, was most often used to get Mystic Mine from the deck. Now, with Mystic Mine banned, this is exactly word for word what I said in my prediction list a while ago. Duelists can now use more copies of Metaverse to help them to get the field spell card that they need. I think Metaverse was fine. I don't think it's going to see play at all. Maybe in things like Labyrinth, but they already have ways to get to the field spell. The problem with Metaverse is that you still have cards like Necro Valley and Secret Village, but I think Metaverse is actually okay. Like, we're not seeing it being played at all. It might get broken someday. 10 key again, fine, bringing some power to Tri Brigade. Yeah, and let's scroll down a little bit further to the bottom here and see that the latest Forbidden Limited list isn't the most drastic one we've seen. I would say it's relatively drastic, banning Mystic Mine, but it weakens the tier limits decks. Weakens the tier limits decks. This is what they tried to do. That dominated the 3 most recent YCS events. This week's remote YCS, which happened just now and was won by Tier Limits Ishizu. Yeah, this will be the first event in effect, so we'll soon see the full impact that it's having on competitive dueling. This is the amount of impact that it has. This is the amount of impact. No impact at all. But I think it was predicted. It's still the best deck. This proves we are 10 days after the ban list went into effect. We had like a week or 2 before that to get ready. Nothing changed. Nobody's playing Fissure. Nobody's playing Macro. Nobody's playing Constellar Knight, Diamond. Nobody's playing Tri Brigade. Nobody's playing Metaverse. Everybody is still on the same deck list pretty much. The ban list did absolutely nothing. But I think Mystic Mine is good, and it's good to have, like, we can disagree, but it's good to have this sort of communication. This should be a practice in each ban list, and everything that needs to be communicated needs to be like out in this fashion. I think this is great from Konami. This is really admirable, honestly. Like, we're not used to this, but I think this should be obvious. This should be the standard. But yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure to leave a thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you are new here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.